Easy and Slow Storytelling with Bill Gates. People think they know Bill Gates. They picture a billionaire in a sweater. A quiet man behind a computer screen. Someone who got rich early and then stepped away. But that image misses something important. Because Bill Gates was never just a tech founder. He was a systems thinker. Someone obsessed with leverage. Someone who believed that small decisions, made early, could shape entire industries, and eventually, shape the world. To understand why Bill Gates matters, you have to go back to a time when computers were not personal at all. They were rare. They were expensive. They belonged to governments, universities, and corporations. Most people never touched one. And almost no one imagined a computer on every desk. Almost no one. Bill Gates was born in 1955, in Seattle. He grew up in a competitive household. Arguments were encouraged. Logic mattered. Winning mattered. From an early age, he learned how to push ideas to their breaking point. Not emotionally, intellectually. If an idea failed under pressure, it wasn't good enough. When Gates first encountered a computer as a teenager, he didn't see a machine. He saw a puzzle, a system that could be understood, optimized, and controlled. He spent nights coding, skipping sleep, skipping class, not because he had to, but because he couldn't stop. People often describe Gates as a prodigy. That's partly true, but talent alone doesn't explain what came next. What really defined him was obsession. A relentless focus on how software worked, and how it could scale. In the early 1970s, computers were changing. Microprocessors were emerging. Hardware was shrinking, but software was an afterthought. Most companies treated it as a free add-on, something secondary. Bill Gates saw the opposite. He believed software would become the core, the real value, the thing that would decide who won and who disappeared. In 1975, Gates dropped out of Harvard. Not because he failed, but because the opportunity was too big to ignore. Together with Paul Allen, he founded Microsoft. At the time, it was a small operation. No glamour, no guarantees. Just code, long hours, and ambition. The early days of Microsoft were not smooth. The company struggled with cash. Deadlines were brutal. Mistakes were costly. And Gates himself was difficult to work with. He demanded perfection. He challenged every assumption. He expected others to work as hard as he did. Many couldn't keep up. But this intensity produced something rare. A company that treated software as a product. Something to be licensed, updated, improved, protected. The turning point came with IBM. In the early 1980s, IBM needed an operating system for its personal computer. Microsoft didn't even have one yet. But Gates saw the opening. Instead of selling software outright, he negotiated a licensing deal. IBM would use the software. Microsoft would keep the rights. It was a subtle decision. And it changed everything. That operating system became MS-DOS. And from there, Windows. As personal computers spread, Microsoft's software spread with them. Every new machine reinforced the ecosystem. Every developer followed the platform. Every user became locked in. This wasn't accidental. It was strategy. Bill Gates understood network effects before the term became popular. He knew that once software became a standard, switching costs would protect it. And he pushed relentlessly to establish those standards. By the 1990s, Microsoft dominated personal computing. Windows was everywhere. Office became essential. Competitors struggled to survive. And Gates became the richest man in the world. For many years in a row. But with dominance came scrutiny. Governments took notice. Regulators accused Microsoft of abusing its power. Antitrust lawsuits followed. Public perception shifted. Gates was no longer just a brilliant founder. He was seen as ruthless, aggressive, unfair. Inside Microsoft, the pressure was constant. Internal competition was intense. Teams fought for resources. Meetings were combative. Ideas were torn apart. Gates believed this made the company stronger. Critics believed it created fear. As the Internet emerged, Microsoft was slow to react. For a moment, it looked like the company might miss the next wave. Gates recognized the threat late. But when he did, he acted decisively. He redirected the company, refocused its strategy, and pulled Microsoft back into relevance. Eventually, Gates stepped down as CEO, then as chairman, and gradually, he stepped away from day-to-day operations. To many, it looked like retirement. But for Gates, it was a shift. Not an ending. Because the second half of Bill Gates's life would be defined by a different ambition. Not software, not wealth, but impact. Through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, he turned his systems thinking toward global problems. Disease, poverty, education, climate change. Once again, people misunderstood him. Some saw charity, others saw public relations. But Gates approached philanthropy the same way he approached software. With data, with metrics, with long-term leverage in mind. He asked uncomfortable questions. Why do certain diseases persist? Why do markets fail the poorest populations? Why do incentives matter more than intentions? And just like before, he faced criticism. Some argued he had too much influence, too much power over public health priorities, too much confidence in technical solutions. Others questioned whether one person, no matter how well-intentioned, should shape global agendas. These criticisms are not meaningless. They point to real risks. Blind spots. Over-centralization. The limits of data-driven thinking when applied to human systems. Bill Gates himself has acknowledged mistakes. Overconfidence. misjudged partnerships, oversimplified assumptions. But he has never stopped engaging, never stopped learning, never stopped iterating. Today, Bill Gates occupies a unique position. He is no longer running a company, but he still influences conversations on technology, on health, on climate, on the future of work. Some see him as a visionary, others as a symbol of elite power. Both views contain truth. What makes Bill Gates fascinating is not that he succeeded. It's how he thinks. He believes systems can be designed, that incentives shape outcomes, that scale matters more than intention, and that progress is possible, but never automatic. His life tells a larger story about how technology reshaped the modern world, about how power accumulates, and about what responsibility looks like after success. The open question is not whether Bill Gates was right. It's whether his model still works. In a world more complex, more interconnected, and more skeptical than ever before, can systems still be engineered from the top down? Or does the next era require something different? That question remains unanswered.